For years, a jury has convicted a woman who was arrested twice for the crime.
In many twists and turns, but Los Angeles prosecutors say justice has finally been served in the stabbing death of 66-year-old Susan Leeds. A jury found Cherie Townsend, a 47-year-old mother of two, guilty of
It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of Hood Tales, let's take it to Los Angeles County, California, to discuss the 2018 case of a mother accused of a heinous crime who was desperate for cash and now faces life imprisonment. But before we get into this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss any future uploads. Stay tuned until the end to hear the whole story. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. On the surface, Sheree Townsend looked like the pillar of her community. Sheree is a Victorville, California native, a town about 120 miles outside of Los Angeles. At 39 years old, she was a woman who seemingly wore many hats and wore them well. She was a dedicated mother of two, deeply involved in the day-to-day lives of her children. They were both active in extracurricular activities. Her son played sports and her daughter was a competitive cheerleader. Sheree had a professional background that commanded respect, having been employed as a probation officer, a job that requires discipline, adherence to the law, and a strong moral compass. But perhaps her most defining role, the one that consumed her calendar and her energy, was that of a cheer mom. If you know anything about the world of competitive cheer, you know it's not just a hobby, it's a lifestyle, and it's an expensive one. We're talking about a world where fees can run anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 a year. It is a high-pressure environment where parents are expected to deliver, both emotionally and financially. And this is where the cracks in Sheree's life began to show. By the spring of 2018, the former probation officer was facing a crushing financial reality. Her 14-year-old daughter had qualified for a major cheerleading competition in Florida, the kind of event a mother dreams of seeing her child shine in. But the bank accounts told a different story. Records would later show that between March and May of that year, Sheree had a zero balance. The pressure was mounting. Sheree had reportedly promised to take not just her daughter, but two of her daughter's friends to Florida as a birthday gift. She even collected cash from other parents for the plane tickets that were never purchased. In a heartbreaking note typed in her phone, she wrote, "In this moment, I am completely broken." She was $2,000 short. Behind the scenes, the desperation was real, and that desperation set her on a collision course with a stranger. On May 3rd, 2018, the worlds of Cherie Townsend and Susan Leeds collided. Susan was a 66-year-old retired nurse, a woman who had dedicated her career to caring for patients with diabetes. Susan was also a type 1 diabetic herself. She was enjoying her retirement in the upscale Rolling Hills estates. That afternoon, Susan was parked in the garage of the Promenade on the Peninsula Mall in her white 2016 Mercedes-Benz SUV. It was supposed to be a routine shopping trip. She shopped at the Gap and grabbed takeout from Rubio's, then returned to her SUV, which was parked across from a gold Chevrolet sedan. But shortly after noon, Susan's life was brutally taken. She was attacked while sitting in the driver's seat of her vehicle, suffering 17 stab wounds to the neck and torso in a fatal encounter that shocked the quiet community. Initially, a homeless man was arrested in connection to Suzanne's slaying, but he was quickly released for lack of evidence. Community members were stunned and questioned if this was truly a random attack or was it more sinister due to the personal nature of the crime. Sheree Townsend then became the second suspect and the primary person of interest. Why? Because of a single critical mistake. When police processed the scene, they found a cell phone lying directly underneath Suzanne's vehicle. It wasn't Suzanne's phone. It was Cheree's. When investigators questioned her about why she had been at the mall, she initially told them she was there shopping for her daughter, but she never entered the mall because her car was having transmission problems. According to reports, Sheree, the owner of a gold Chevy Malibu, had been in the parking garage for over 2 hours. By this time, investigators also had surveillance footage showing Sheree's gold Chevy Malibu on surveillance cameras entering the parking garage at 9:40 a.m. and leaving erratically shortly after the incident, cutting off vehicles and running a red light. Detectives believe the incident took place between 12:10 and 12:13 p.m. When questioned about how her phone got under Suzanne's vehicle, she said she had simply dropped her phone. Police searched Sheree's car and the home of a friend Sheree was staying with, but found nothing. Investigators also tracked Suzanne's cell phone as it traveled in the same direction Sheree was seen heading on surveillance cameras. Sheree was seen on surveillance driving back toward the mall after she left, but turned back around, possibly in an attempt to look for her missing cell phone. Sheree later went to a Verizon store to close the account attached to that phone. Sheree was arrested later that month. It seemed like an open and shut case, but then something unexpected happened. Just 5 days after being taken into custody, Sheree was released. The district attorney's office declined to file charges, citing a lack of sufficient evidence. You see, despite the phone being at the scene, the physical evidence was murky. Reports indicated that while blood was found in Suzanne's car, none of it matched Sheree's DNA. Investigators couldn't find the weapon. There was no clear video of the attack itself. Sheree went on the offensive. She appeared on news outlets, looking directly into the camera, maintaining her absolute innocence and that she was being targeted because of her skin color and her background.
I think they were looking for somebody and they had to blame somebody. At some point I dropped my phone. My phone was found in the parking lot.
Emboldened by her release, Sheree took legal action. In October 2018, she filed a massive federal lawsuit against the sheriff's department and the county. She alleged false arrest, defamation, and civil rights violations. For years, this was the narrative: an innocent mother wrongly accused by a system desperate to close a high-profile case. But while the civil suit moved through the courts, the criminal investigation quietly churned in the background. In July 2022, the case was reassigned to new investigators after the previous detectives retired. They re-interviewed witnesses and re-evaluated the digital footprint. They believe they now had more substantial evidence pinning Sheree to the crime and a motive: money. Specifically $2,000, so her daughter could have attended a cheer competition in Florida that weekend. Investigators would later uncover a digital trail of anxiety, Google searches for how to make money fast, and research into whether stores checked IDs for credit card purchases. The mom of two had allegedly considered a GoFundMe, but rejected the idea, fearing it would embarrass her daughter. Townsend also had texted her son's former football coach about getting a fake ID. Investigators also learned that Cherie had conducted Google searches for ways to make money, including duplicating credit cards, robbing coin-operated washing machines, celebrity donations, and even finding a sugar daddy. Also cited were Google searches for promenade on the peninsula and Equinox gyms in the area. Then came the turning point. In August 2023, just as Cherie's lawsuit was heading toward a potential resolution, the Sheriff's Department struck. Cherie was re-interviewed by detectives. This time, her story changed. When asked again about why she was at the mall the day of the incident, she said she was there to shop for her son's prom and said she didn't have any mechanical issues with her car, which contradicted her prior statement. Detectives also spoke with the general manager of a cheer team with which Cherie's daughter was involved, and the manager said he put Cherie on a cash or cashier check basis after she started bouncing checks. Cherie was rearrested and formally charged. The motive, according to authorities, was robbery, an attempt to secure that $2,000 for the Florida cheer trip. That same month, her lawsuit for false arrest was dismissed. The state believed they finally had enough to prove that the innocent cheer mom was actually a calculator of a fatal crime. Fast forward to November 2025, Sheree Townsend stood trial in Torrance Superior Court. The proceedings were intense. The prosecution painted a picture of a woman cornered by financial ruin, willing to do the unthinkable for $2,000. They pointed out her inconsistent stories, how in 2018 she claimed car trouble kept her in the garage, but in 2023 claimed she had been walking around shopping. Surveillance footage in the mall never showed Cherie going into any stores that day. The prosecution highlighted the phone found under Suzanne's car was the undeniable link. Forensic testing was also done on the phone investigators believed was Cherie's, and DNA evidence on the phone matched Cherie's profile. A witness took the stand who said they saw Cherie at the mall that day in May 2018. A woman who was walking back to her car shortly after 11:30 a.m. in the mall parking lot identified Cherie as the woman she saw dressed in all black, standing at the back of an open trunk of a vehicle she described as a gold 4-door sedan that was parked next to hers. The woman testified that Cherie just stared at her. She said she got this feeling Cherie was going to hurt her, that something bad was going to happen. She said Cherie moved first to the hood of her own car and then to the passenger side of the woman's vehicle before Cherie sat down in her own vehicle. The woman testified Cherie never took her eyes off of her. The woman said she had never been looked at like that in her life. Under cross-examination, the woman acknowledged Cherie never said anything to her or made any hand gestures. Cheer parents and acquaintances of Cherie also took the stand. The mother of another girl on the cheer team testified that expenses for the cheer program were costly. She said Cherie's daughter failed to show up for an event that weekend in Florida, despite other parents' offers to try to pool money to get the girl an airplane flight. According to records, after the incident, Cherie allegedly admitted to another cheer mom on Facebook that something huge happened today. I cannot get into it right now, but I could not get on that plane tonight. The defense fought hard, reminding the jury that there were no fingerprints, no DNA from Cherie on the victim, and no weapon. There was no evidence that suggested that any of Suzanne's credit cards were used or attempted to be used. Her jewelry wasn't stolen. The black purse was never found. The defense emphasized that Sheree has always maintained her innocence and said although the cell phone placement can't be explained, it doesn't mean Sheree is guilty of the crime. But the jury was not swayed. On Thursday, December 4th, 2025, after 7 long years of twists and turns, Cherie Townsend was found guilty of first-degree charges. As we look at this case, it serves as a chilling reminder of how fragile the truth can be. The conviction of Cherie Townsend didn't rely on a smoking gun in her hand or her DNA on the victim. It hinged almost entirely on circumstantial evidence, a lost phone, a desperate financial situation, and a timeline that couldn't be explained away. It leaves us to wonder about the tragic intersection of 2 lives, a grandmother enjoying her retirement and a mother so consumed by the pressure to provide a perfect image for her daughter that she allegedly destroyed 2 families in the process. Sheree Townsend is scheduled to be sentenced in January 2026, closing the final chapter of a tragedy that started with a cheerleading trip that never happened. Condolences to Susan's family. It was definitely a tragic situation how she lost her life. May she continue to rest in peace. This case has lots of twists and turns that make you question the truth. Sheree was struggling financially and in desperate need, but did that desperation drive her to commit this heinous crime? This case is purely circumstantial, no physical evidence, and in all honesty, the prosecution's case was weak. However, there was enough evidence there that just couldn't be explained, which is why I believe Sheree was convicted, and there's a possibility she could be guilty. I wonder if Sheree had laid low and not filed the lawsuit against the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, would the criminal case against her move forward? It stalled for 5 long years. Did the state get this right? Could there be other possibilities? Maybe, maybe not. Fam, let's continue the conversation. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe Sheree is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Let me know in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, consider liking and sharing. Subscribe for more stories like this and for the stories behind the headlines, because behind them all are lives forever changed. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times. Until next time.